Hey everybody, it's Greg Martin here. Strap on in and put on your big boy pants. It's time to listen to Pop Goes Your World with Derek Myers and Chris McBrien.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 271, Beetlejuice Movie Review. Along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. Now, this week, we're going to go back 35 years, all the way back to 1988. We're going to review the Tim Burton film, Beetlejuice. But before we get to our movie this week, Derek, any pop culture you've been able to take in this past week, my friend?
Only a couple of things. It's been a pretty busy week outside of pop culture for me. Real life getting in the way. Stupid real life. Stupid job wanting me to actually do work to get a paycheck.
What's up with that?
Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, I had a chance to finally finish watching something I started watching on Netflix. Got to be a month ago. Just finally had a chance to finish watching it this week. It's called The Lost City. It stars Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum, and it was okay. I mean, it was fine. It was, she plays an author who writes these like action romance books, and Channing Tatum plays a cover model who, like Fabio, who just poses on the cover for the photo of the book. And she's basically at a point where she's just like, I'm done with this. And meanwhile, the Channing Tatum character sort of sees himself as the character in the book, even though he's just a buffoon. And then the author actually gets kidnapped, because something in one of her recent books could be the secret clue to finding a real life treasure, and then, you know, action and adventure ensue. It's sort of a light action, light comedy, little bit romance thrown in. It's a fun turn your brain off movie. I mean, Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum are pleasant to look at, and their chemistry is okay. I mean, I didn't necessarily believe that they were lovers or anything silly like that, but it was fine. And then, for the first time in many weeks, I finally had a chance to watch a documentary.
For 40 days and 40 nights, he watches documentaries. He likes to learn about the world. It's Derek's Documentaries. Derek's Documentaries.
Actually, you've been able to watch a few documentaries lately, because you mentioned the Mr. Dress-Up one.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
anyway,
true.
So what did you watch this time? I love that.
So again, I got my access to Netflix back. This one dropped a couple of weeks ago. It's four 45-minute episodes, and it's called Big Vape: The Rise and Fall of Juul. That's the Juul electronic cigarette. That's the one they're talking about.
It's like Juul or something.
Yeah,
like
Juul.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I mean, I don't really know a lot about the origin of this product. I know that it was very big for a while. I know that it sort of seems to have fallen off of the center of like mainstream pop culture. But again, I'm not a smoker. I don't know many people that are smokers. I definitely don't know anybody who actually smokes one of these Juuls. So for all I know, they could still be the biggest thing in the world. And it's just, I'm not their target audience, or, well, even if I was, I don't have one. I'm not a part of it. But so this was completely 100% new to me. I literally knew absolutely nothing about it. It was very educational. And right at the very beginning, like in the first 30 seconds, there's some title cards that show up at the beginning, and it just says, like, the company of Juul, blah, blah, blah. It gives you a little bit of background. And then it says, at the peak of their power, they were worth $40 billion. Wow. Today, they are worth less than 5% of that. Here's what happened. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. And yeah, it's 4 45-minute episodes. The first one is literally just all about the technology side of it. Like, how did they come up with the creation of the actual device? And then the next couple episodes are like, how did they put it to market? How did they sell it? What was the reception like? What sort of marketing strategies did they have to use? Because they had a lot of hurdles at the beginning. then like the third episode is all about how, you know, it just took off and they made money on top of money on top of money. And then the fourth episode talks about all the problems they started running into, because like any other new product, you don't have history to draw back on and say like, well, our product's been in the marketplace for 50 years. So we have a pretty good idea of how it works and what the long-term effects are, especially something related to smoking. You got to think there could be some health problems coming along here. Well, by the time the thing was in the market long enough for them to realize that, a lot of people were in a spot where they were potentially going to be subjected to some of these problems. So no, it was very educational. I enjoyed it from the sense that it taught me about something I didn't know. A lot of what they talked about in the documentary was somewhat disturbing, and especially the last episode is, you know, a little bit hard to watch in the sense that just so many people ended up so in places where they were so badly off. Some people just lost a ridiculous amount of money. Some people lost friends and family. Some people lost reputation, but a lot of people lost health, like things to do with their health. There were people that did lose their life related to this. Again, I don't think that's so much a spoiler, but in the context of this docuseries, you get to see all of that. So, but no, it was interesting. Apparently it's based on a book. So if it is something you're interested in, you watch the documentary and you're like, I want to know more about it. I'm guessing the book is probably a pretty interesting read if this is a topic you are interested in. So that was it for me. Just the two, The Lost City on Netflix and the docuseries Big Vape, also on Netflix.
Nice. And obviously you and I had the opportunity to get together this past week. And I came down to your place and we went around the greater Toronto area looking for some of my Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back cards to add to my collection. So that was a lot of fun. So that was great. We don't always get a chance to hang out in person. So that was great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it was fun. We got to nerd it up. I told people what we were doing and they're all like, man, you guys are a couple of nerds, aren't you? I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah,
we are.
I'm looking for rare comic books. He's looking for rare Star Wars cards. And then, yeah, no, that was it. Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. It was good to see him.
But from a pop culture point of view, so I want to mention one thing. So my youngest son, he's 10 years old, as you know, Derek. He's been going back recently and watching the Power Rangers. So okay. He was really into the show a couple years ago, and now he's like going back to it. I'm not sure exactly which version of the Power Rangers he's watching. It's not the original one from the 90s, if you remember that one. It's called like Dino Fury or Ninja Steel, or I think it's one of those two. I'm not sure. Anyway, regardless, he's been watching this show recently. And then the other day, my wife says to him, oh, which one is your favorite Power Ranger? And he's like, oh, I like the white one. Then he pipes up and he goes, Daddy's favorite is the pink Power Ranger. Let me tell you.
He's not wrong.
If looks could kill, Derek, my wife's stare was like two daggers shooting across the room. I may or may not be sleeping on the couch for the foreseeable future. Watching the Power Rangers, no doubt, I imagine. All right, here we go.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
Derek, my family unfortunately just found out that my grandfather is addicted to a drug.
Okay.
Yeah, he's addicted to Viagra. Although we're all sad, no one's taking it harder than Grandma.
Jeez.
No one's taking it harder than Grandma.
That's not where I thought that was going, but
I've got a can, so I'm opening this up right now.
And I'm a girl drink drunk, so I'm having a Pop Shop cream soda.
Oh, that's a good one.
That has Chris's stamp all over it. Yeah, okay.
Oh. You mean The Phantom Menace?
Oh!
I'm not a fan of the prequels.
Okay, fair enough.
I used to be a somewhat successful podcaster in the world of fantasy baseball.
Go Ducks! Oh man.
I'm still laughing about Grandma. Sorry. Okay, so anyway, Derek.
Calm down. Do we need to edit you out? Do you need a moment to take a breath?
So my friend, this week, it was over to me to select a film celebrating a major milestone anniversary. So I went with Tim Burton's 1988 film Beetlejuice, mainly because I had never seen it. And I mentioned this to you. It was like never on my radar, as a movie that I wanted to see, like both back in the day and in the years that have passed since. So now you've seen this movie before. So having watched it again
so many times
this past week, what were your thoughts?
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I almost didn't have a chance to watch the movie before the show. And I thought to myself, I've seen this movie so many times. This is one of those rare cases where I would actually be fairly confident going in without having watched it in the last week. Now, I don't like to do that, but I'll admit it. I've done that on a couple of shows in the past. And I really don't like it. I feel it's sort of, I'm cheating myself and I'm cheating you and I'm cheating the listeners. Like, you pick up a lot of things watching a movie, even if it's the 10th or 20th time you're watching it. But as luck would have it, 2 hours before we were set to record, I found myself with nothing to do. And I thought, you know what? That's more than enough time. I found it on demand. It's 90 minutes. I'm like, perfect. I managed to get through it. And then like 10 minutes after that, I got the note from you saying, we're ready to go. Log in. So I did manage to watch it again just today. And I'm glad I did, because I did pick up some new details. The things I liked, I had a chance to really, watch them again and enjoy them. And I found that in the world of Marvel CGI cinematic universe, where everything is all computer graphics and computer generation and all these things that are done on a green screen, it was nice to go back and watch a movie where the special effects were mostly practical, deliberately done in such a way that they're supposed to look practical. Like, this wasn't like in the Empire Strikes Back, where they're trying to make the Tauntauns legitimately look real. Like, Tim Burton was doing what he was doing deliberately to set a certain style and aesthetic. And I found it was a refreshing look back at that type of filmmaking. So no, I was glad I had a chance to go back and watch it. It reminded me of all the reasons I enjoyed this movie. I mean, it's not perfect, and we'll get to it, but there's a lot to like in this. I feel there's a lot to like in this. Now, I know you've never seen this before, so I'm kind of curious as to what your initial impressions were after you had a chance to sit down and watch it. And did you watch it by yourself, or did you watch it with your family?
Watched it with myself, and as we mentioned, I'd never seen this movie. So watching it for the first time this week, one thing that kind of jumped out at me, it surprised me a little bit. I was a little bit shocked that this movie is sandwiched between Pee-wee's Big Adventure and like Batman and Edward Scissorhands for Tim Burton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I thought this movie totally sucked.
Wow.
Yeah. I did not like it. And Tim Burton has always had this unique ability to create these totally like unbelievable, amazing worlds. This movie felt really sophomoric. It felt cheap. It felt like a low budget side project that Tim Burton did between these big Hollywood movies. It was weird. I didn't enjoy it. Even my wife, and she had seen it before, so she watched a bit of it with me, and then she just got up and left. She's like, this movie's not very good. She's like, I forgot. This movie's not very good. So one question I have right off the bat before I start to get into the box office and stuff is the title, Beetlejuice. Because the spelling of it is different in the movie. Like, they show his name, but it's written out as Betelgeuse.
Yeah.
And they change it to like Beetlejuice, like beetle like the bug and juice like the drink. I'm assuming just for the ease of mainstream audiences so that the title would stick with them. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, what is Beetlejuice? Like the way that it's spelled the other way? Is that, I don't know.
It's a star. It's a star. It's the middle star in the belt of the constellation Orion. It's the name of an astronomical body in space.
Which has so much to do with a bunch of dead people summoning another dead person to try and scare people out of their house. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe that's why it's so weird. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the box office, because we don't like to get into this. So it was released on March the 30th, 1988. It was made on a production budget of $15 million. And it took in $73 million at the domestic U.S. box office. So it cracked the top 10 that year. Let's run down the top 10 from 1988, shall we? Number 1.
Go for it.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit was number 1, $156 million. Number 2 was Coming to America. Good Morning Vietnam was in third, $122 million. Big was fourth with $114 million. Crocodile Dundee 2 was fifth. Three Men and a Baby was sixth. Die Hard was seventh. Should have been higher. Moonstruck 8th. Cocktail 9th. Beetlejuice 10th. Just edged out A Fish Called Wanda. So,
Pretty solid list.
Yeah, pretty solid list, and it obviously it did well, in that year. So I don't know. I also wanted to, I guess let's just jump right into the cast. I always like breaking down the cast. So I want to start with
Sure.
Michael Keaton. Okay. Even though he's the sort of the title character, but he doesn't appear in it a whole lot. But he started off in TV. His first gig was actually on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He was a panda, a costume character. And he made a few appearances on sitcoms in the 70s, like Maude and Mary Hartman. And then he landed the co-lead with Jim Belushi on a sitcom called Working Stiffs. They shot 9 episodes, and it was canceled after 4. So the other 5 episodes never aired. They released them on DVD or something like that. And then he got the role of Billy Blazkowski in Night Shift. And I know you like that movie. So Night Shift is with my hero, Henry Winkler. He was amazing in Night Shift. I remember
He was quite good. Yeah.
I saw that movie in the theater when I was 12, which is actually kind of weird. If you think, there's a lot of nudity in that movie. Not to mention the fact that it's about a prostitution ring in a morgue. But it's, the 80s were a different time, Derek.
Indeed, they were.
Watched a lot of stuff way too young, but that's just the way it was. So Michael Keaton became a star after he was in Night Shift. And then there was like Mr. Mom and Johnny Dangerously and Gung Ho. He was also in this totally underrated movie called The Dream Team. God,
I've seen it in a long time, but I've seen it. It is quite good.
Good. And then, of course, he got the lead role in Batman in 1989. Probably, I guess, due to him working with Tim Burton here on Beetlejuice. And, needless to say, Derek, you know this. A lot of Batman fans hated the idea of him playing Bruce Wayne. In a lot of ways, if you think about it, it killed his career too. Like it wasn't until Birdman that the Academy decided, he was the flavor of the month, and to give career accolades to. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, in this movie, like he's over the top. Probably would have been difficult for any other actor to pull this off, except maybe like someone like Jim Carrey. Like I kept thinking that, but as I watched the movie, I also thought it was kind of pointless. Like he's this huge over-the-top character, but he's hardly in the movie at all. And he isn't even all that consequential, I didn't think. I mean, like they named the movie after him, but I don't know, it seemed a bit weird. So anyway, that's my big rant on Michael Keaton. Like, what did you think of him just in general? Like, you like Michael Keaton, and what do you think of him in this?
I do. I like him a lot. I thought he was really good in this. I like that he was not in the movie that much, despite the movie being named for him. I think I read in the trivia he's in it something like 15 minutes out of the 90 minutes of the movie. But I think to your point, the character that's created here is so over the top and eccentric and loud and annoying that you sort of need him in small doses. Like I think if he was in it for 45 minutes, you would get so sick of him so quickly. But the fact that when they use him, especially before the sort of big climax scene, he's only on screen for a couple minutes at a time. And he, in my opinion, when those first few times when he's on screen, he just steals the scene. And from what I read, the overwhelming majority of what he did was improv. Like he was sort of given some very broad direction and then just like said, go. And even some, like one of my absolute favorite lines is when the two ghosts, Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis, I can't remember the names of their characters. They're in the model and they're like first meeting him after they've said the Beetlejuice 3 times. And then he's trying to get them to come back. He's like, come on, let's go get a meal. And then they go home. And they leave. And he's yelling at them and he's like, come on, what is it? And then he kicks over the tree and he's like, nice effing model. And he grabs his crotch and it makes a honking noise. Yeah. Like that is, in my mind, that's one of my all-time favorites. I love it. I laugh every time I watch it. And from what I read, that was completely improv. And he literally turned and he was saying those lines to the prop person. And it just so happened that, when they kept it in the movie, it seemed like he was saying it to these characters. And so I love that he's got that comedic background and that he was able to do that. And then you can see him in stuff years later where you see like he has that range. He can be a very serious, dramatic actor. So not that we necessarily had a lot of examples of that at that time, but you could see the promise. No, it was I liked him a lot. I thought he was really good at this.
It's funny you mentioned that one scene because when he did and he said that line and he dropped the F-bomb and everything, like, and then grabbed his crotch, to me, what jumped out at me was like that one tiny scene made this whole thing inappropriate for kids. Otherwise, like, kids might actually like this movie, but I don't know.
Well, I don't know. What do you mean by inappropriate? Because it's a bad word?
Bad word and grabbing his crotch and stuff. I don't know.
You have two boys. Trust me. They know about grabbing their crotch.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Alec Baldwin. Okay. Wow. Does he ever look young here? I mean,
no kidding.
I know it's 35 years ago, but he looks like a different person. He's so young and thin, you know? I don't know if you saw in the news, he's back in hot water for that shooting on the set of the movie Rust. So apparently prosecutors are looking to charge him with involuntary manslaughter for accidentally shooting another actor on the set with a prop gun that was like loaded with live ammunition instead of blanks. I don't know a lot of the details of this case, but it's not his fault that the gun was loaded. I guess the issue is he discharged it in a way that maybe violated safety procedures or something, but
don't know. Don't know enough about it. Not interested. Don't even want to get into it.
But anyway, let's just for his acting career. So, like Michael Keaton, Baldwin actually got started in TV, and then all of a sudden, 1988 comes along, and he shows up in 5 films. He was in She's Having a Baby with Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth McGovern, Beetlejuice, Married to the Mob, Working Girl, and Talk Radio. It was really The Hunt for Red October in 1990 that made him a big star.
Yeah.
And then he's worked steadily ever since, right up until 2021 when he started shooting his co-stars, apparently. And he was a guest host on Saturday Night Live right from his early days as a movie star. And I remember they used to do this sketch on SNL called the 5 Timers Club.
Yep.
Actors that had hosted SNL 5 times, like Tom Hanks and Steve Martin, Danny DeVito, and guys like that. They were members of the 5 Timers Club. Alec Baldwin not only joined the club, he's now hosted the show a record 17 times. That's pretty impressive if you think about it.
And he's pretty good. I mean, there was the whole season there when he was playing President Trump. Like he won an Emmy for it. He's really come into his own. Like I was not a big fan of him years ago. I'll be honest, but I've definitely warmed up to him more in the last little while. And going back to rewatch 30 Rock, which I never watched when it was on TV, but I recently binged the whole series. He's fantastic in that show. He's just so good. And but yeah, I didn't really love him in this. I didn't think he was outstanding. I didn't think he did anything that another performer couldn't have done. And from what I was reading online, apparently this is one of his own movies that he dislikes the most. He didn't feel that he did a very good job, as opposed to Michael Keaton, who every time they ask him what's a favorite movie you've ever done, this is his number one answer. Doesn't even hesitate. So it's kind of funny that you have those flip sides between the two male leads.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I thought the same thing. I thought in this movie he was just okay. Just like you said, it could have easily been played by another actor. Mm-hmm. I kept thinking of Barry Bostwick from the Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was watching him play this role. But anyway, Geena Davis, I want to mention her. She's done a lot of stuff over the years. Probably best known to a lot of people for like Thelma and Louise, League of Their Own.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
She won a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for The Accidental Tourist. But for me, I will always remember her from Family Ties. Alex had a major crush on her. She was this nanny that Stephen Keaton hired.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that.
I'm pretty sure it was when Meredith Baxter Birney was like holding out for more money, so she wasn't around, so they hired this nanny. And Geena Davis will always hold a special place in my heart because she was in Tootsie, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I mentioned that before. And in this movie again, like I liked her. She's very charismatic. She has a lot of screen presence, but I thought she was just okay. I mean, she was better than Alec Baldwin, but it was just okay for me. I like her in just about anything she does, but
yeah, I sort of felt the same this time through that the two performers that play the ghosts, the good ghosts, that I just felt they were both sort of just okay. I felt that Michael Keaton, in my mind, stole the movie. I'm not a big fan of Winona Ryder most of the time, but rewatching it this time around, I realized like she's really good in this. And Catherine O'Hara, who again doesn't have a lot of screen time, really good. Like basically the family that moves into the house, like they do a really good job. I found that I enjoyed their performances more, maybe just because those characters were a little more neurotic and the performers had more to work with, whereas the main two ghosts were just sort of, you're good, clean, and wholesome people, you know, you're positive about everything. And it's like, that's boring. Like, that's boring to watch, and I can only imagine it's boring as a performer to actually perform those roles. But
well, let's talk about that family a little bit more. I think that's interesting you bring that up, because for Winona Ryder, this was her first big movie. I mean, she was in Lucas with Corey Haim and Carrie Green, and Charlie Sheen was in that too.
Charlie Sheen, yeah.
Yeah, and she went on to do Heathers and Edward Scissorhands. And then in 2001, for anybody that's younger, doesn't remember, she was arrested in Beverly Hills for shoplifting.
Yeah.
And it effectively killed her career. She appeared in a few things here and there, but it wasn't really until Stranger Things that she had that bona fide comeback. In this movie, interestingly, I know you said you liked her. I didn't think she was all that great. I really thought that this goth teen girl could have been almost even more memorable than Beetlejuice. But Winona Ryder was just kind of sleepwalking through it, I felt. Like, and then at the beginning, one thing I just want to mention, when you see her at the beginning and she's all disheveled and she's got the pale face and the black around her eyes, I thought she looked like Mia Wallace in Pulp Fiction after she OD'd on heroin. That's what I just like, oh my God, she looks like Uma Thurman there. But you liked her a little bit better than I did in this.
Well, and I think part of it was, again, when I'm watching these movies for the podcast, I tend to do a little bit of homework beforehand so that I keep my eye out for certain scenes. And one of the things that I was reading was someone was talking about, the question posed to the internet was, is Winona Ryder's character supposed to be suffering from depression in this movie? Now, obviously, it's a comedy and it came out in the 80s, and that wasn't the kind of thing that was really talked about in certain circles. But when I watched it with that sort of perspective of how, is this character supposed to be depressed? And because even at one point, like, she's writing what's effectively a suicide note. Now, again, I think the whole idea is, the way I always interpreted before this was, it's a young person crying out for attention. How do I get attention from parents who are this eccentric, especially with the father who's remarried this woman who's this, this artist and just all the rest of that. But when I started watching it this time around and sort of thinking, like, is this character legit depressed? And I'm starting to think, yeah, she probably could be. She probably is to some extent. And so when I sort of watched it from that point of view, I sort of just got a little twist on what I was expecting. And I feel that when I watched it through that lens, I actually enjoyed it a lot more, just thinking, oh, well, if that was the direction they gave her for this character, I think that it worked. For me, anyway.
Yeah, and I think that, that whole goth thing is depression is like kind of part of it. Like, you don't fit in with everybody else and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I felt like, I wanted more from her character. I wanted more. But
I mean, it's a comedy. It's 90 minutes. There's like 7 or 8 main characters. You're not really going to get a lot from anyone. Like, Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis are the two, like, they probably combined have the most screen time over anyone. And then Michael Keaton obviously is the big star, but like we said, he's sort of used in a more sparing way until the end. So yeah, and to your point, the character that Winona Ryder's playing was, it was her first sort of big blockbuster movie. I heard that Alyssa Milano was the other person that sort of made the short list, and it was just at the last minute they ended up picking Winona Ryder. So think of that sort of what if moment. Like, what if they had gone with Alyssa Milano instead? How might this have been different? How might both of their careers changed? Who knows?
Good point. So the other people that move in there, the parents, Catherine O'Hara, you mentioned. Mm-hmm. I always thought she was super underrated. Like,
yes.
And that's kind of hard to believe if you consider the fact that she was in one of the highest grossing comedies of all time with Home Alone. And she was the mom in Schitt's Creek, with one of the most critically acclaimed TV shows ever.
Yeah. It was 45 years for her overnight success.
Yeah. I loved her on SCTV. I mean, she had this ability to create all these characters like, the whole cast was masters at doing that, but she was right up there with all of them, like Lola Heatherton, I want to bear your children, all that. I always thought that a lot of Lola Heatherton showed up in Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek, mostly the voice. I don't know. I felt like it was a bit of a toned down version of Lola that she used there. But anyway, in this movie, like the rest of the cast, I felt like she was just okay. Like there was nothing like that stood out to me, in her in this movie. But I like her generally, but I don't know, she was just okay in this. And then Jeffrey Jones, I hate this guy.
Yeah, he's not my favorite. And knowing what happens in real life,
That's why
you just have every other reason to hate him over and above that. Like, I mean, he usually just plays a smarmy douchebag anyway, and it's like, hey, turns out he wasn't acting.
Yeah, I mean, he was in Easy Money with Rodney Dangerfield and Howard the Duck, and obviously Ed Rooney in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
He was in Amadeus.
Oh, yes, he was. That's right. But obviously, most notably, he was arrested in 2003 for possession of child pornography. So how anybody hired this guy after that for anything is beyond me. He was in Deadwood after that. I never watched it. Never will. I don't know. I don't like that guy. I want to give a shout out to Sylvia Sidney. So she was like the, what was she? She was like she was smoking the cigarette, and she was like,
their agent, what did they call her? I think agent was what they used.
Yeah, something like that. So
caseworker or something.
She was the original Mama Carlson from the pilot episode of WKRP.
Oh yeah. Nice.
After the pilot, she was replaced by Carol Bruce, who was a way better Mama Carlson, by the way. And then when they did the flashback episode at the end of season 1, they went back and reshot the scene from the pilot where she comes into the station, and they did it with Carol Bruce. But she was on the pilot episode of one of my favorite TV shows of all time. So she gets a shout out from me. That's for sure.
There you go.
I want to talk about a couple scenes from the movie. Okay.
Okay.
The waiting room scene, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
When the dead couple, like they draw a chalk, like a door out of chalk on the wall, and they walk through it, and they go into this waiting room. And there's all these weird characters in there, like the guy with the shrunken head. He really stands out. Yep. There's a guy there that looks exactly like Paul Bearer from the WWF. Now, Derek.
Sure.
I know.
I have no idea who that is.
You're not a big wrestling fan, but there was this wrestler called The Undertaker, and his manager was Paul Bearer, and he looked exactly like this guy. I just couldn't believe it. Like he wearing a suit, and he had sort of this white makeup with the black around his eyes. So anyway, I thought that scene was kind of interesting. And then the big scene, I guess, is when Beetlejuice arrives. It's supposed to be this huge, over-the-top entrance, But and they play it up by having Michael Keaton say, "It's showtime," which I think was the big marketing clip.
Yeah, I remember that from the trailer.
Yeah. But Michael Keaton just turns out to be this lecherous pervert. He kisses Geena Davis on the mouth. He looks up her skirt with a stick, and he starts fondling her legs. Pretty cringeworthy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, definitely by today's standard. But as we've said before, some of these movies in the 80s, what was considered funny and humorous at the time, would certainly not stand up to any scrutiny today. And, you can't excuse the behavior, but different time. Every time I watched that when I was, even today, there was parts of it that I was laughing at, and parts of it, like you said, where I'm like, yeah, it's probably a little inappropriate.
And Alec Baldwin doesn't even do anything to defend her. I mean, if this movie had happened in today's age, he probably would have shot him with a prop gun, I guess.
Jeez.
But I mean, he didn't even do anything at all to defend the honor of his wife. Okay, so the scene outside the house, all the scenes that took place when they left the house, with the sandworms and all that stuff, the whole look and feel of this weird world that was going on outside the house, it came off as cheap and cheesy looking to me. Was it just me?
No, I read a little bit about that part of the practical effects were done in a way to sort of make them look cheap and sort of be like almost an homage or a callback to like cheap B movies from the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. But I did read that they had a limited special effects budget, and that was where they were trying to spend the money, and they basically couldn't do what they wanted with the budget they had. And it's like, okay, we're out of money. What do you want to do? And they're like, I guess we got to use it. And it's unfortunate. You know how George Lucas went back and touched up Star Wars and everyone got angry? I think if Tim Burton had some money and some time and some inclination and decided to go back to touch up Beetlejuice and want to fix up that part of it, I don't think anyone would complain.
Well, one thing that Tim Burton is famous for is using claymation in his movies.
Yeah, or stop motion animation for sure, yeah.
Or whatever. Like, for here, though, in this movie, it just doesn't work. I don't know. Like, in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Large Marge was amazing. It's scary, too. It was such a great thing. But here, like, the sandworms, they just look dumb. I felt like the claymation sucked in this movie. And maybe that was part of why I didn't like it, because Tim Burton uses a lot of that. And in this movie, I don't know. I felt like it didn't really work. But
well, and to me, it's more his like his artistic style, and it's if you watch a lot of his movies, they sort of have a lot of this same. Well, again, I'll use the word style again. I hate to keep using it, but like it's very distinct where if you've never seen it before and someone says, hey, guess who directed this? And you watch it for 30 seconds, you're going to go, oh, that's got to have Tim Burton done it somewhere. Like, look, you can tell just by how the models looked and the stop motion animation and just the color palettes. And there's just so much of his signature is in this. And I think that when this came out, he was still working on that. Like any artist, your style and your the way you compose your art is going to change over time, and you're going to refine it as you have more opportunities to do it. And I think that this is one of those early opportunities where he had just come off of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which ended up being a surprise hit. He was given a bigger budget and a lot more freedom than he had ever had before, so he was able to try things. And to your point, maybe they don't all work, or maybe they don't all work for all people, but it definitely led to a lot of what you see here being a little more refined and then doing a number of other projects in the years to come. And again, so if Tim Burton's style isn't your thing, you're not going to like this. You're just straight up not. There's a lot of Tim Burton in this. And I'm like physically on the screen, the just the way that he likes to compose these weird and bizarre things. If you dig it, I think you're going to appreciate that this is, everything's got to start somewhere. Like that's what I'm looking at it going, oh yeah, I can, because I know some of his later works. I'm watching this one again today and saying, oh yeah, that's reminiscent of this other thing that is, done a little bit differently and possibly even a little bit better in something 10 years later.
Well, you mentioned the special effects. Let's just go back to that for a quick second, because
sure.
you know me, I do like practical special effects over CGI crap. And the waiting room weirdos, they were
that was really good
with like traditional special effects. That was great. And also all the scenes where Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin were trying to scare the couple when they first moved in, all practical special effects. You could see they were using like a headless dummy, and then they were using green screens. They used a lot of green screens for the exterior shots, I thought, too. Like that was pretty noticeable. But I also want to mention the Banana Boat song, because it's featured prominently in this movie from the beginning. Yeah,
it's in the opening credits.
Yeah, and then the scene at the dinner table when they all start singing it, it's supposed to be played for laughs, I think. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. I don't know. There's something off about that whole scene. And I feel like that should be, watching it for the first time, that was probably like a prominent scene in the film, or like a well-known scene in the film.
Yeah, it's for sure. When you ask people about Beetlejuice, that's usually the scene that they talk about, and that's what it was saying in a lot of the stuff I was reading, where that scene, even Tim Burton felt, I don't know if this is going to work, because it maybe isn't as laugh out loud funny, but once they did some test screenings and it started to show, this is the scene that everybody walked away talking about. So he's like, okay, what do I know? Let's keep it in there. Let's get this done. And again, I think I'm like you. I didn't love it the first time I saw it, but when I was watching the movie again today, I was looking forward to seeing that scene again.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, now if you think of the song itself, it's this traditional Jamaican song, which was made famous in 1955 by Harry Belafonte. He recorded it for the Colgate Comedy Hour on NBC. And I remember this song had a bit of a resurgence in the late 80s and early 90s, so I'm assuming it was due to this movie.
I would imagine so. Yeah. And I mean, even now you hear it at sport. I hear it at the Leafs game all the time. They play it out. It's just one of those songs that you hear in stadiums a lot. At least I do where I go.
Just to go back for a second to that couple that moves in. You mentioned that you felt they were more interesting than the original couple that dies. I actually, in some ways, felt bad for these people, except for Jeffrey Jones. That guy. Mm-hmm. But the idea that this couple moves into this house. Like, what did they do wrong? Like, nothing. They just moved in. Like, they should have been the real protagonists of the film. You know, like they were the ones that were put upon. So I thought of that too, and I thought so. It kind of flipped it on its head. And one of the last things I want to mention is the end of the film. So it seemed like Winona Ryder became like the daughter of the ghosts or something. I'll be honest, I kind of zoned out right near the end, so I might have missed what's going on. But she wasn't all goth. Like, her makeup was kind of normal. Mm-hmm. She didn't have the black around the eyes and stuff. I was like, oh, she looks normal there. And then she levitates near the stairway and sings a song. I just didn't get it. Like, what the hell was I missing? At that point, I'm like, this movie is really, really, really stupid. I don't know. I don't know what I expected, but I guess it was a hell of a lot more than this crap fest. I mean, it's Tim friggin' Burton. I mean, come on, give me something here. But I don't know. I just didn't get it.
Well, I think you just sort of hit the nail on the head there. You weren't paying attention because, as we've done in other shows, you're asking me, what did this mean? And I tell you 20 minutes earlier, there was a whole bunch of dialogue that explained all of that. And same thing here. They had a whole bunch of dialogue that explained all this. So if you weren't paying attention, I can get why you zoned out. You know, it's like, hey, why did that end that way? I didn't like it. Well, yeah, because you stopped watching it 20 minutes ago, dude.
Maybe, yeah. So I think it's important that we take a look at this, especially you. Where do you rank this with Tim Burton's other films? Because I'll give you mine. I think Edward Scissorhands is his best film. And I think number 2 would be Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and number 3 would probably be Batman. That's how I'd rank his movies. But what do you think, and where does this one rank with them?
It would definitely make my top 3. I think I would definitely include Batman on that list. Honestly, a lot of his stuff, like he's got a lot of that sort of gothic horror sort of stuff, like not hardcore horror, but more just the leaning in that direction. I'm never really a big fan of that. And so I can appreciate it and I like the style, but like even Nightmare Before Christmas, like I don't really care for that at all. But as a piece of art and watching the way that the animation came together, it's amazing to look at. This is probably like my number 2 for Tim Burton. Probably be Batman and then Beetlejuice.
Batman number 1 and then this and then.
Now again, I'm sort of biased for Batman just because I'm such a big Batman fan.
Of course, and Batman was good, but I really liked Edward Scissorhands a lot.
Not a big fan of Edward Scissorhands. I like Big Fish. That's one of his later movies. I really enjoyed that one.
No, I don't know. I never saw that one, so I guess I can't really comment. But
it came out after 1989, so I'm not really surprised.
No. Do you want to rank this one out of 10?
Probably give it a 7 or 7.5.
I think I may give it a 4. You know, it's not complete. It's not a complete turkey, but it was underwhelming for me, and it wasn't what I expected. And like I said to you at the beginning, it kind of flew under the radar for me. And it's funny,
right? Because
a lot of these movies that kind of flew under the radar for me and like never really interested me. Now that I've gone back and watched them, I'm like, maybe there was a reason why that was. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting that I just want to circle back to something you said where you said that you didn't feel this was family friendly or kid friendly. It's funny because when I was watching this earlier tonight and my wife came in the room and she said, "Oh, yeah, I noticed this was on YTV. Is that where you're watching it?" And I said, no, I got it on one of my streamers. And then I turned and I said, "It's on YTV?" She's like, "Yeah, but it's got commercials." And I'm like, again, obviously they feel that it's, family friendly enough to show on
I think the whole movie is family friendly except for that one scene.
Yeah, they probably just
one scene just like kind of throws it all, to the wind that way. So, all right. So, okay, what do you say now? We have some
fun with Caveman.
All right. Well, since this was my movie that I picked or like nominated for the show because I'd never seen it, trivia is over to you. So, what do you got for us, my friend? I'm gonna sit back and relax.
Yeah, I'm gonna break it down into a couple sort of smaller sections, a little bit less traditional at first. So this was directed by Tim Burton, and the music was composed by Danny Elfman, which we never really talked about, but it was. And it turns out Tim Burton and Danny Elfman have worked together a lot, like a ridiculous amount. Almost 20 movies together, these two guys. Like, and we've talked about this before when directors like to work with the same performers, or in this case, this director likes to work with a particular music composer, and they almost have like a shared symbiotic style where you can almost not separate one for the other. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and ask you to identify some films. And the commonality in all of this is Tim Burton either directed or produced it, and Danny Elfman composed the music. So it's two big hints right out of the gate. So first, now I will say this is probably going to be tough trivia for you because Tim Burton's majority of his work happened after 1990. So I'm not trying to deliberately make you look dumb, but you may get a lot of them wrong simply because they came out after your sweet spot. But hopefully a lot of our listeners, especially if they're Tim Burton fans, can play along and get the answers. Okay. So Tim Burton and Danny Elfman have done 2 pairs of sequels. Can you name the two movies, like the 2 franchises where they've done 2 sequels together? And what are the 2 movies?
I would think Batman.
Yes.
Okay. And
1989, and its sequel was
Batman Returns.
It was in 1992. Okay, so that's the first set. There's another 2 movies they did together where it was a part 1 and a part 2.
I'm going to just go ahead and say it's Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Big Top Pee-wee.
Nope. Believe it or not, Tim Burton had nothing to do with Big Top Pee-wee. Didn't have a producer credit, director credit, writing credit, nothing. Right. Not involved at all. Okay, so now I will give you the description.
Okay.
Of the first movie in this sequel. So a 19-year-old girl returns to the magical world from her childhood adventure where she reunites with her old friends and learns of her true destiny.
Didn't he do Alice in Wonderland?
Yep, Alice in Wonderland 2010. And
I didn't even know.
Did you know what the sequel was called?
Didn't even know
it was called Alice Through the Looking Glass 2016. So those were the 2 they did together that were sequels: Batman Returns, and Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Was Alice in Wonderland, was Johnny Depp in that?
Yes. Yeah. And let me tell you, when I was doing the search, when I was working on this trivia, I almost did the Tim Burton, Danny Elfman, Johnny Depp, but since Johnny Depp's not in Beetlejuice, it just felt like a step too far. So, okay. These 2 guys have also done 4 movies together that are remakes or reimaginings of previous intellectual property. Can you name any of the 4? And if you can't, I'll give you the synopsis of them.
I can name one of them for sure. I think it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
No. Oh yes. You know what? Sorry, I missed that one. Yeah, because that was. Yeah, sorry. I totally forgot.
I remember my wife went to see Charlie and the Chocolate Factory too. She was really into Johnny Depp. She said, that movie was so good. What else would they have done that was
so they did 5 together?
Actually, I remember back when I was in Port Elgin, we went to see the one movie Sleepy Hollow.
They did do Sleepy Hollow. Was that a cartoon? Did they do it? Was there?
No, Sleepy Hollow was with like Johnny Depp and.
No. But I mean, so I'm asking you the ones that they did that were like a remake or reimagining of a previous movie.
Sleepy Hollow was a cartoon back when I was a kid, because I remember it used to scare me. That headless horseman scared the daylights out of me.
Nice. All right, you get any of the other ones?
Didn't they do Dumbo or something like that?
They did in 2019. They did a remake of Dumbo, live action based off the Disney cartoon.
I don't think I can think of anything else that Tim Burton has done. Did you mention the other week that he did, when I was talking to him, you mentioned Planet of the Apes?
Yep, that's another one. 2001 Planet of the Apes, a reimagining of the 1968 film.
Yeah, yep. You had said he did these Planet. I think it was when we were talking about Andy Serkis.
Yes,
from the movie.
Although that's Andy Serkis was not affiliated with the Tim Burton version of the Planet of the Apes. There's been 3 sort of reimaginings of the Planet of the Apes.
So I'm confusing them all because there've been so many.
You are, but you got the right answer. You sort of walked into it sideways, but you got it.
Nice.
All right. So I got 2 others on my list. I'm going to just read you the descriptions. Honestly, I don't think you're getting either one, but we'll try. So the original, this is a remake of a short film from 1984 The remake, it was a full-length feature, came out in 2012, and this is the description. When a boy's beloved dog passes away suddenly, he attempts to bring the animal back to life through a powerful science experiment.
Well, actually, now that I think about this, didn't Tim Burton remake his own movie, Frankenweenie?
Yes, he did.
Look at me pulling.
Look at that, you're crushing it. Oh my God. Okay.
Nice.
The next one, this one, the remake came out in 2012.
Okay.
And it's based on a TV series from the 60s. And this is the description. An imprisoned vampire is set free and returns to his ancestral home where his dysfunctional descendants are in need of his protection.
I don't know.
Was based on the TV series Dark Shadows.
Oh, he made a Dark Shadows. Who knew?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know about that.
I never watched the TV series, and I had no desire to watch the movie.
The TV series was a bit before my time, even though
1966 to 1971. Yeah. So I thought, okay.
And that movie was like, I never heard of it. So
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So I've got 8 more films on the list that they've done together. How many more can you name? And any of the ones you can't get, I'll give you the synopsis.
You've
already mentioned.
You've already mentioned
2 of them. Okay. I'm going to start with the 2 that you've already mentioned. The solitary life of an artificial man who was incompletely constructed and has unusual hands.
That's Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, Edward Scissorhands, 1990.
Yeah, okay.
All right. This other one, when an eccentric man-child gets his beloved bike stolen in broad daylight, he sets out across the U.S. on an adventure of his life.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Big Adventure, yeah. We just talked about that one.
Yeah, we recorded that.
We just reviewed that too, yeah. Okay, so then there's 6 more here. Honestly, I honestly don't think you might get 1 or 2 of them, but I'd be shocked if you.
We'll see.
All right, 2003. A frustrated son tries to determine the fact from fiction in his dying father's life.
I have no idea.
It's star Ewan McGregor. Is called Big Fish. And I definitely think it's one of Burton's best.
I've heard of it. Oh, you just mentioned it, I think, tonight in the show.
It's really good. Yeah.
I don't really know.
All right. The next one's from 2005. When a shy groom practices his wedding vows in the inadvertent presence of a deceased young woman, she rises from the grave, assuming he has married her.
He did he did this stop motion movie.
Yep.
The Nightmare Before Christmas. Then he did another one, and I feel like it was Johnny Depp was like kind of
did the voice.
But God, for the life of me, I can't think of the title of the film. But it was like that, like the Nightmare Before Christmas, right? I don't remember the title of the film.
It was called Corpse Bride.
Corpse Bride, yes. Okay, yes, I have heard of that before. Yeah.
And I'm going to give you Nightmare Before Christmas because you just said it 5 times. Tim Burton did not direct it, contrary to popular belief. He produced it, but Danny Elfman did all the music.
Gotcha.
All right. This one's from 2014, and I want to say it might have even been nominated for some below-the-line Oscars, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong on that. It's a drama about the awakening of painter Margaret Keane, her phenomenal success in the 1950s, and the subsequent legal difficulties she had with her husband, who claimed credit for her works in the 1960s.
You got me on that one. I don't know.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's quite good. It's called Big Eyes, because all the people in it have like gigantic eyes, like all the paintings. So
it's like anime where they have the big eyes.
They sort of look like that. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I got 2 more on the list. I'm going to give you the really hard one first, and then I'm going to try and end you with the one that you might actually get that I think is a little easier. Sure. This was another animated one. This one's from 2009.
Okay.
I actually saw this at the Toronto Film Festival completely by accident, just because I needed to fill a slot. And this is right in your favorite post-apocalyptic genre, so I know you're going to know it. A rag doll that awakens in a post-apocalyptic future holds the key to humanity's salvation.
No idea.
No. You really? You don't own this on Blu-ray?
No.
The title of the movie is 9. It's the number 9, and the doll that awakens has the number 9 stitched on him. That's why the movie's called.
I've never heard of it. So
yeah, it was sort of a low-key movie, but anyway, it's got a little bit of a fan following.
Right.
Okay, last one. This was a really big, major movie in the 90s from 1996. Huge cast. Earth is invaded by aliens with unbeatable weapons and a Sorry, let me start again. Earth is invaded by aliens with unbeatable weapons and a cruel sense of humor. A lot of the performers played multiple roles in this movie.
I never saw it, but I remember, was it like Mars Attacks?
Yes, yes, it was.
Yeah.
Mars
Was
Attacks.
it like Jack Nicholson in that?
Jack Nicholson played two characters in this one.
I remember that.
It was
I have
so
not
dumb.
seen the movie, but I'm really familiar of it. So
yeah, it looked spectacular, but oh my god, that movie was terrible. It was a big renter at Blockbuster, and people were so jazzed about it, and then they came back and went, "This movie kind of sucked." I'm like, not kind of. It totally sucked. But
kind of like me with Beetlejuice. Come back and sucks,
maybe not. Anyway, you did pretty good. Again, I knew there was a lot of these you weren't going to know because of they came out in the 90s and the 2000s. But you all in all, you did pretty good. And you actually corrected me on a couple of those remakes. So good job on that.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think Tim Burton is a very talented human being. Like, he's very artistic. He's a visionary. He has a definite style.
Oh, no question.
Like there's very few directors in the world that you can watch a film and be like, that's this guy or that's this girl.
Agree. I absolutely agree.
Tim Burton has that. And that is a very unique quality. So for all those reasons, like I know his work, but I haven't seen them all. But
I'm like, a lot of those ones on my list I hadn't seen. In large part, the ones I haven't seen is largely because I just don't really have any desire to see them. I've read the synopsis and went, that's not my jam. But to your point, if I was flicking channels and it was on, I would know in 10 seconds that it was a Tim Burton just by the way it looked, and often by the way it sounds, because the Danny Elfman scores are usually so pronounced. So you're like, oh my god, this has got to be Tim Burton because this is definitely Danny Elfman.
I feel like he peaked though with Edward Scissorhands. Like, it just was the culmination of his style, his talent, Elfman's score, Johnny Depp's performance, Winona Ryder's performance. It was all there, and it was just magical. Like, it was just so unique and weird, and like even the neighborhood, and there was all the pastel homes and all. It all just peaked in that movie for me, for all that stuff. But that was good. This one, Beetlejuice, not so much. But what do you say next time we come back and we just do a topic? Is that good? We're going to take next week off. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm taking a little vacation, well-deserved vacation.
Where are you going to go?
We are taking a little short cruise in through the Bahamas. So I'll tell you all about it when we get back. And so no show next week, but I'll come back fully refreshed, fully recharged with some spectacular topic that we will figure out at the last second. People may not realize we don't plan these out as well as you might think. Sometimes we have a long list of 10 topics we want to do, but most of the time it's 2 or 3 days before going, crap, we still haven't picked a topic.
Or the night before we're like, hey, we got to do a top 10 or top 5 of this, and we'll just do it. It's all good. Yeah.
But honestly, Chris, the ones where we're flying by the seat of our pants, I tend to have more fun. And I find those episodes when I listen back to them, it's like, wow, we really sounded like we knew what we were talking about.
So there you
People
go.
don't want to know how the sausage is made. Just enjoy it.
Exactly. So I'll tell you what, we'll come back and we'll make another sausage in 2 weeks.
Oh, my.
Until then, I'm Chris McBride, that's Derek Myers, and we're saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.